I woke up this morning, was led to this like a horse to water. I was watching some videos of the Rebbe, and he was talking about Menachem Av and the whole idea of the month of Av, and that Menachem is the same Gematria Zemach, and I look it up, and it's 138, and so I look up a book called The 138 Openings of Wisdom by the Ramchal, and turn to number 8, and talking about, and I see these circles, and there are 6 worlds, and they'll say a world's in the middle. And they usually talk about 4 worlds, and then I talk about 5 worlds, and an Atzmutz level in that 5th world, but that's a 6th world. And so then remember, what you call a thing is what a thing is. And so, like, I have a name, Alexander. It represents a certain energy. If I call myself some other part of that name, even a nickname of that, it's a different manifestation of that energy. So I look at the picture, and it was depicted as Atik. Usually they call Atik Yomin as the highest name, or Atika Kedusha, or Atika. But this just says Atik. And then I look at the 5th world, and it says Erech. So I'm going to use those names. This all comes to me as in this morning wake-up period. I'm going to use those names. And so I do the gematria for Atik. And then I do that's the 6th world, that's the highest world, that's the Atzmutz world. And remember that Atzmutz starts with an ayin, and so does Atik. And then I do the gematria for Erech, for Erech Anpin, but it's listed as Erech, and that's the 5th world. These are the worlds, in Keta of Etziliut, but they're their own worlds. There are really 3 worlds in the Etziliut world. There's Etziliut itself, and then the concept of Erech, and the concept of Atik. And so I'm looking here, and I see Erech, which I've always known and we've talked about, is 231. And 231 is Aleph, 111, and Samech, 120. It's also that's 231, so it's Aleph Samek, or Samek Aleph, that's Ein Sof, or Sitra Akra. It's also the combination of letters. If you take 22 letters and multiply them by 21 over 2, that's 231. And that's the meditation of the combination of 22 letters in pairs of 2. And so I get Atik and Arik, and those are the 5th and the 6th circles of this world, and in the circle worlds. And so that comes out to be 580 and 231. That's 811 plus 2 terms and 1 for the whole term. That's 814. And that just happens to be the gematria of Shaddai. Remember that Shaddai comes from Yesod, and it's on the mezuzah, and it's on the back of the, in the writing of the mezuzah on the back. And mezuzah also, there's a on the tefillin, the shins, the dalet, and the yud, Shaddai. So this is found in the highest levels of Atik and Arik. The protection from the mezuzah is found in those circular worlds. And that's why I'm so upset that the synagogue's closed, coronavirus, because the mezuzah protects the synagogue, protects your house, protects everything. And it comes from the fifth world and the sixth world. And then I think of the din, because I'm always like, it's Kedusha and din, and one has to, in a certain level, and that is my problem with talking to people, one has to be able to see that the din is also Kedusha, and it's like a powerful type of unknown Kedusha. And so I do the Kedusha, the din for atik. So din of the tik means leaving off the first letter, which is an ayin. So I have Tov, Yud, Kof, that's 580. And then I did the din for erich, which means leaving off the aleph. So there's a strange combination here, the aleph and the ayin. We'll talk about this. And then that's erich, the din is resh, Yud, Kof. That's 230. So 510 plus 230 is 740. That just happens to be man. So the din, here's the big one of the big deals here. And beautiful find for me, because I think everything is man. The manna from heaven is the din of atik and erich. 740, mem, final nun, man. So this is big for me, you see. And so, what do we do with knowing that? I went into then I went down, just playing around. I went to the Osea world, I went to the Yetzirah world, and the Osea world is 385, Osea, that's the lower world, and the world above that is the Yetzirah world. So here, watch this, Yetzirah is also 315, and the din of Osea is 315, because we leave off the ayin. So Osea is ayin, shin, yud, hey. So it's shin, yud, hey. That's 315, and that's the din of Osea world. Now, strangely enough, that happens to be the gematria of the Yetzirah world. 315, Yetzirah is yud, Zion, Yud, Resh, Hey, 315. So that's amazing that the din, that the Osea world is represented in the din, the Yetzirah world is represented in the din of Osea. Now again, this is a combination, a hipuk, an opposites, because does Osea come down as the din of the, does the Yetzirah come down into the din, as the din of Osea? Or does the Osea din rise up to Yetzirah? And this is a great meditation. Two of them come out to be 630, which is a number that just happened to appear to me yesterday for some other reasons. Another interesting thing here is that Osea and Yetzirah, Osea is 385, and Yetzirah is 315, that's 700, and that's the name Set, Shin Tov. And if I add that to the Beriah world, 700 plus well, they won't do that, right? So these interesting combinations of Aleph and Ayin in these highest worlds of Atik and Arik. And the Aleph and the Ayin come together as 71, which is Mole. You know, it's a very high level. And it's a number of people in the Sanhedrin. It's a very high level of thing. And this comes together as Aleph and Ayin. And for me, this Aleph and Ayin of the high worlds, and remember that Atik, Atzilius is an Ayin. So to me, the Ayin of Atik and Atzmutz is represented in the large Ayin in the Shema. And that's a nice meditation also. That when you do the Shema, you're sensating, you're absorbing the Ayin in these higher worlds. You see? And the Ayin has a direct relationship to the Aleph, because in a certain sense the Ayin is a materialization of the Aleph. You see? The Aleph represents Or, and the Ayin represents the eye, which can see the Or also. These are the number of 70 and 71. This is a very interesting kind of combination. Maybe that's it for right now. You know, I had some other things here of, well, that's it for right now. Because I've done here is a lot with the circles. We're talking about the circle world and the Kav that comes down into the Oseo world. But one of the reasons this is interesting to me, that because after the Kav only comes there, the circles are below also. You see, and it comes down in these writings as something that's depicted in the Torah. But to me, and this is another one of the reasons it's come to me, because I'm doing stuff with the kidney meridians and the soles of the feet. And, well, we'll go from there.